The ice-cutting laser hummed like a dying insect as Marcus Webb carved another section. From the frozen wall of his makeshift shelter, sweat dripped down his face despite the sub-zero temperature of Nith Prime, each drop freezing before it could fall. The plasma storm brewing on the horizon painted the sky in violent shades of purple and gold, a beautiful harbinger of death that would fry any unprotected electronics within hours. Marcus paused, wiping his brow with the back of his gloved hand. 3 months. 3 months since the mining transport had suffered catastrophic engine failure and crashed on this godforsaken ice ball. 3 months since he'd watched his crewmates die one by one from radiation, poisoning, cold, and despair. 3 months of surviving alone with nothing but salvaged equipment and stubborn determination. The storm was approaching faster than his weather scanner had predicted. He needed to reinforce the shelter's electromagnetic shielding, and that meant digging deeper into the permafrost to ground the makeshift Faraday cage he'd constructed from the transport's hull fragments. His laser cutter sparked against something hard beneath the ice. Marcus cursed, thinking he'd hit bedrock. But as he cleared away more frozen debris, he realized it wasn't stone. The surface was smooth, organic, yielding slightly under pressure. "What the hell?" he muttered, his breath forming crystalline clouds in the frigid air. Marcus adjusted his headlamp and leaned closer. Through the translucent ice, he could make out the outline of a humanoid figure. Female, by the curves visible through what appeared to be a form-fitting garment. Her skin held an otherworldly luminescence, pale as moonlight with an almost pearl-like sheen. Delicate features were framed by long, silver-white hair that seemed to flow like liquid mercury even while frozen solid. She was beautiful in an ethereal way that made his chest tighten, with an emotion he'd thought buried with his dead crewmates. But she was also clearly not human. Her limbs were slightly longer in proportion, her face more angular, and even through the ice, he could see the faint tracery of what looked like silver veins. Beneath her translucent skin, Marcus had encountered alien species before during his years working the Outer Rim mining operations. Most were hostile, some were indifferent, but a few had proven to be allies to humanity. This one, however, was like nothing in the xenobiological databases he'd studied. The approaching storm made the decision for him. He couldn't leave her here, couldn't let the electromagnetic pulses cook whatever remained of her, living or dead. She deserved better than being left as a frozen curiosity in an abandoned shelter. His laser cutter made quick work of the ice around her body. As the frozen shell melted away, Marcus caught his first clear look at her. She was even more striking than he'd initially thought. Her skin held that same pearl-like quality, but now he could see it seemed to pulse with its own inner light. The silver tracery he'd noticed wasn't veins at all, but some kind of bioluminescent pattern that ran along her arms and disappeared beneath her strange, form-fitting garment. The clothing itself was unlike anything he'd seen. It appeared to be made from a material that shifted and flowed like liquid metal, conforming perfectly to her body while providing what looked like environmental protection. No zippers, no seams, just a seamless second skin that suggested technology far beyond human capabilities. Marcus lifted her carefully, surprised by how light she felt. Her body was cold, but not with the brittle coldness of death. Instead, she felt like polished marble that had been left in a cool room, solid but somehow still alive. He carried her into the shelter just as the first electromagnetic pulse from the storm struck. The mountain, his jury-rigged shielding held, but the lights flickered ominously. Marcus laid her on his sleeping pad and activated the small thermal heater he'd salvaged from the transport's life support system. As warmth filled the cramped space, Marcus found himself studying her face. Even in apparent death, she was breathtaking. Her features held a serenity that spoke of peaceful dreams rather than the final sleep. Her lips, slightly parted, were the color of winter roses. Her closed eyelids were delicate, almost translucent, with those same silver patterns running along the edges like decorative tattoos. The storm outside reached its peak, battering his shelter with electromagnetic fury. Marcus huddled in the corner, watching over his mysterious companion and wondering what twist of fate had brought her to this frozen grave. Was she an explorer like himself, crashed and frozen? A criminal exiled to die on this wasteland, or something else entirely. Hours passed. The thermal heater worked its magic, and slowly, the pearl-like luminescence of her skin began to brighten. The silver patterns along her arms pulsed with increasing frequency. Like a slow heartbeat gaining strength, Marcus leaned forward, fascinated. Despite himself, that's when her eyes snapped open. They were the most beautiful eyes Marcus had ever seen. Like liquid starlight, with flecks of gold that seemed to swirl and dance in their depths. But they were also filled with terror so profound it made his breath catch in his throat. She sat up with fluid grace, her gaze darting around the shelter before fixing on him. When she spoke, her voice was like silver bells in a winter wind, melodious despite the fear that laced every word. "Fool," she whispered. And somehow he understood her perfectly despite the alien cadence to her speech. "Now they'll find me." Marcus raised his hands in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe. My name is Marcus Webb. You were frozen in the ice. And I safe?" She laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You have no idea what you've done." She looked at him with those mesmerizing eyes, and Marcus felt something shift inside his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the thermal heater. "My hibernation was not sleep, human. It was silence, a way to hide from those who hunt my kind." "Hunt you? Why?" She touched her chest, where the silver patterns seemed to pulse brighter. "Because of what I am, what I can do." She looked at him again, and this time Marcus saw something beyond fear in her gaze. There was sadness there, and loneliness so deep it made his heart ache. "They call us empaths. We can feel the emotions of others, heal the wounds of the heart and mind. But to them, we are weapons to be collected, tools to be used." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. "Who's hunting you?" "The Nexus Corporation." The name fell from her lips. "Like a curse, they've been systematically capturing my people for decades, using our abilities to create perfect soldiers, loyal employees, compliant populations. Those who resist," she shuddered, "they find ways to make us comply." Outside, the storm was beginning to subside, but Marcus could hear something else now. A low humming sound that definitely wasn't natural. His salvaged proximity detector began beeping frantically. "Ships," he breathed, recognizing the sound of atmospheric engines. She nodded grimly, rising to her feet with that same fluid grace. "They've found me." The hibernation dampened my empathic signature, but now that I'm awake, she looked at him with those incredible eyes, and Marcus felt his world shift on its axis. "I'm sorry, Marcus Webb. Your kindness may have doomed us both." The humming grew louder, closer. Marcus grabbed his emergency pack and the salvaged pulse rifle he'd cobbled together from transport components. "Then we run." She tilted her head, studying him with an expression of surprise. "You would help me. You don't even know my name." "I know enough," Marcus said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "And I'd like to know your name, if we're going to be running together." For the first time since awakening, she smiled, and it was like watching the sunrise after a long, cold night. "Zara," she said. "My name is Zara Keth." "Well, Zara Keth," Marcus said, checking his rifle's charge. "Let's see if we can outrun your hunters long enough to figure out how to stop them." The ships were directly overhead now, their scanning beams cutting through the dissipating storm. Like searchlights, Marcus and Zara looked at each other, and in that moment, something passed between them, a connection that went deeper than words, deeper than the desperate circumstances that had brought them together. "Ready?" Marcus asked. Zara nodded, her silver patterns pulsing with determination. "Ready." They burst from the shelter into the frozen wasteland beyond, to figures against the infinite ice, beginning a journey that would change both their lives forever. The ice beneath their feet crunched like broken glass, as Marcus and Zara fled across the frozen wasteland of Nith Prime. Behind them, the Nexus Corporation ships descended like mechanical vultures, their scanning beams carving bright paths through the dissipating storm clouds. Marcus's breath came in sharp puffs as he led Zara toward the only refuge he knew, the Crystal Caverns that honeycombed the northern ridge. "This way," Marcus gasped, his boots slipping on the treacherous ice. "There are caves ahead. The crystal formations should interfere with their scanners." Zara moved beside him with an otherworldly grace that made running across the broken terrain look effortless. Her silver patterns pulsed brighter with each step, and Marcus noticed that wherever her feet touched the ground, the ice seemed to warm slightly. "Creating better purchase, Marcus," she said, her melodious voice carrying easily despite their pace. "I need you to understand something. The closer you stay to me, the more you'll be affected by my empathic field." "Affected how?" he asked, vaulting over a ridge of broken ice. "You'll feel what I feel." She hesitated, her luminescent cheeks darkening with what might have been a blush. "I feel everything more intensely than your kind. Joy, fear, pain, and other emotions too." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the whine of energy weapons filled the air. Pulse blasts struck the ice around them, sending up geysers of superheated steam. Through the mist, Marcus could see armored figures rappelling from the hovering ships. "Zaraketh." A voice boomed across the wasteland, amplified by suit speakers. "You will cease this futile flight. The corporation offers generous terms for your cooperation." "Generous terms," Zara spat, her beautiful face twisted with disgust. "They mean a golden cage and a neural collar." The entrance to the crystal caverns yawned before them like a frozen mouth. Marcus grabbed Zara's hand. Her skin was warm despite the cold, and he felt a jolt of sensation that had nothing to do with temperature, and pulled her into the darkness. The caverns were a wonderland of ice and crystal formations that caught and refracted their headlamp beams into dancing rainbows. Stalactites of pure crystal hung like chandeliers, while frozen waterfalls created curtains of translucent beauty. But Marcus had no time to appreciate the scenery. The sound of boots on ice echoed from the entrance behind them. "Down here," Marcus whispered, leading Zara deeper into the maze of passages. His years of geological training served him well as he navigated by the subtle signs of airflow and mineral composition. They descended through a narrow chimney into a larger chamber, where massive crystal formations created a natural amphitheater. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent lichen that cast everything in an ethereal blue glow. Zara gasped, her silver patterns resonating with the natural light show. "It's beautiful," she breathed, momentarily forgetting their pursuers. "And defensible," Marcus added, checking the chamber's exits. "Only to Wazen, and we can see both from here." That's when he noticed the effect she'd warned him about. Standing close to Zara in the confined space, Marcus could feel her emotions washing over him like waves. Her fear was a cold knot in his stomach, but underneath it was something else, a warm current of gratitude and something deeper, more personal. "You feel it, don't you?" Zara asked softly, moving closer to him. In the crystal light, she looked like a being from myth, too beautiful to be real. "The connection forming between us," Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. What he felt was beyond physical attraction, though that was certainly part of it. It was as if she was awakening parts of his heart he'd thought died with his family years ago. "It's not fair to you," Zara continued, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "My kind. We don't just heal emotional wounds, we form bonds with those we help. It's not conscious, not chosen, it just happens." "And if I don't mind?" Marcus asked, surprised by his own boldness. Before Zara could answer, voices echoed from the passage above. Their pursuers had found the chamber. "Thane Voss, Nexus Recovery Specialist," a cold voice announced as an armored figure dropped through the entrance. "Ms. Kath, you've led us quite a chase." The man who emerged from the shadows was tall and lean, his face scarred by some past conflict. His armor bore the Nexus Corporation logo, and advanced weapons bristled from his belt and back. Behind him came to more soldiers, equally well-equipped. "Hello, Thane," Zara said, her voice steady despite the fear Marcus could feel radiating from her. "Still collecting souls for your corporate masters?" Thane smiled, but it was a cold expression that never reached his eyes. "Only the valuable ones. You'll be pleased to know your friend Kira sends her regards. She's proven quite useful in our compliance program." Zara's anguish hit Marcus like a physical blow. Through their growing connection, he felt her pain as if it were his own, the betrayal of seeing a loved one broken and turned into a tool. "Let her go," Marcus said, raising his salvaged rifle. "She's done nothing wrong." Thane laughed. "Wrong? She's a walking violation of mental privacy laws." Do you have any idea what an unregistered empath can do to a person's mind? I know what your corporation does to them, Marcus replied. I've seen the reports, the compliance programs and attitude adjustments, necessary measures for dangerous individuals. Thane said dismissively. He gestured to his soldiers. Stun the human. Minimal damage to the asset. The fight was brief but brutal. Marcus's mining experience had given him strength and endurance, but he was outgunned and outnumbered. Still, he managed to damage one soldier's armor with a well-placed shot before a stun blast dropped him to his knees. That's when Zara acted. Her silver patterns blazed like miniature suns as she reached out with her empathic abilities. Marcus felt the wave of power wash over him, not painful, but overwhelming in its intensity. It was like being caught in an emotional storm, feeling every sensation magnified 100-fold. The effect on Thane and his soldiers was immediate and devastating. They screamed, clutching their heads as Zara's unleashed emotions, years of fear, rage, and desperate loneliness crashed into their minds. One soldier collapsed entirely, while another began firing wildly at the crystal formations. Stop, Thane gasped. His scarred face twisted in agony. You're killing them. Good, Zara said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Marcus's bones. Feel what you've put my people through. Feel what it's like to have your mind invaded, your emotions manipulated. But the effort was costing her. Marcus could see her strength failing, her luminescent skin growing dim. The empathic assault had drained her reserves, and she swayed on her feet. Thane, despite his obvious pain, managed to raise his weapon. Neural disruptor, specifically designed for your kind. Marcus found the strength to lunge forward, tackling Thane as the weapon discharged. The beam went wide, striking the crystal formations instead of Zara, but the impact sent cascading fractures through the chamber's structure, the caverns collapsing. Marcus shouted as chunks of crystal began raining down. Zara grabbed his hand, her touch sending another surge of sensation through him. This way, I can feel a passage deeper down. They ran as the chamber crumbled behind them, leaving Thane and his soldiers to dig themselves out. The passage Zara had sensed led them deeper into the cavern system, away from their pursuers, but also away from any hope of reaching the surface soon. In the darkness, lit only by Zara's fading bioluminescence, Marcus felt her exhaustion as if it were his own. She stumbled, and he caught her, pulling her close. The contact sent waves of emotion between them, her gratitude mixing with his protective instincts, her loneliness finding solace in his steady presence. The bond, she whispered against his chest. It's growing stronger. Soon you won't be able to tell where your emotions end and mine begin. Marcus looked down at her beautiful, alien face. Maybe I don't want to tell the difference. In the crystal-lit darkness, surrounded by danger and uncertainty, they shared their first kiss. It was electric, not just from physical attraction, but from the empathic connection that linked their hearts. Marcus felt her joy bloom like a flower in spring, while she felt his long-buried capacity for love awakening after years of loneliness. When they broke apart, both were glowing, Zara with her natural bioluminescence, and Marcus with a faint echo of her silver patterns that now traced along his skin. Where they touched, "What's happening to me?" he asked, staring at his hands. "The bond," Zara said softly, "it's making you like me. Not an empath, but connected. You'll be able to feel what I feel. Share my abilities to some degree, above them." They could hear Thane's voice echoing through the caverns. "Find them. The corporation is offering a bonus for the human too. Apparently, he's developing some interesting characteristics." Marcus looked at Zara, seeing his own determination reflected in her starlight eyes. "Then we'd better make sure they don't catch us." Hand in hand, their emotions flowing together like two rivers joining into one, they ventured deeper into the crystal maze, leaving the sounds of pursuit behind. Whatever they were becoming together, whatever the cost of their growing bond, they would face it as one. 3 days deeper in the cavern system, Marcus discovered that sharing emotions with an empath was like learning to breathe underwater. Overwhelming at first, then gradually natural, then impossible to imagine living without. The silver tracery that had appeared on his skin now pulsed in rhythm with Zara's. creating patterns of light that helped them navigate the crystal labyrinth. They had found water in underground pools, warmed by geothermal vents, and Zara's knowledge of edible cave fungi had kept them fed. But more importantly, they had found something Marcus hadn't expected: healing. "Tell me about your family," Zara said softly as they rested beside a pool of naturally heated water. Her empathic abilities had been gently probing the edges of an old wound in his psyche, something painful he'd kept buried for years. Marcus tensed. I don't talk about that, but you carry it everywhere," she said, her luminous eyes full of compassion. "The guilt, the self-blame, it's like acid in your soul, Marcus. Let me help." Through their bond, he could feel her genuine desire to ease his pain. It was intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. No one had ever wanted to carry his burdens with him before. "My wife Emma and daughter Lily," he said finally, the words coming out in a rush. "Transport accident 5 years ago. I was supposed to be on that ship, but I took a last-minute assignment to Kepler Station. The extra money seemed important then." His voice broke. "They died because I chose credits over family time." Zara moved closer, her cool hands cupping his face. "Show me," she whispered. "Let me see them through your eyes." The memories flowed between them: Emma's laugh, bright and musical, Lily's gap-toothed grin as she showed him her latest drawing, quiet Sunday mornings with his girls curled against him, while they watched the sunrise through their apartment's viewport. But also the darker memories, the emergency message, the long flight back to Earth, the empty apartment that still smelled like Emma's perfume. Marcus felt Zara's presence in his mind like a gentle current, not invading but flowing alongside his memories. Where the old pain lived, she brought warmth. Where guilt had festered, she offered understanding. "You loved them completely," she said, tears streaming down her luminescent cheeks. "That love doesn't diminish because you survived. It honors them." For the first time in 5 years, Marcus felt the crushing weight of survivor's guilt begin to lift. Through Zara's empathic touch, he could feel Emma's love as if she were still alive, could sense that she would want him to be happy, to find love again. "How do you do that?" he asked, amazed. "Healing emotional wounds is what my people were born to do," Zara replied. "Before the corporation began hunting us, we were healers, counselors, peace bringers. We helped others find harmony within themselves and with each other. And now," her expression darkened, "now we're weapons. They use our abilities to break resistance fighters, to ensure corporate loyalty, to make people into perfect, compliant workers. What should be a gift of healing becomes a tool of oppression." A sound echoed through the cavern's, voices calling, the scrape of boots on stone. Thane and his team were still hunting them, using some kind of tracking technology that wasn't affected by the crystal interference. "We need to keep moving," Marcus said, but Zara held up a hand. "Wait, there's someone else down here, not with Thane's group." Her empathic senses were more developed than his growing abilities. "A woman. She's afraid, but trying to help." They followed Zara's guidance through a series of narrow passages until they emerged into a vast chamber, where natural crystals had grown into formations resembling a cathedral. Bioluminescent organisms created pools of soft light throughout the space, and in one of these pools sat a woman in a tattered Nexus Corporation lab coat. She was human, probably in her 40s, with short brown hair and intelligent eyes behind cracked glasses. When she saw them approach, she raised her hands peacefully. "Please," she said, "I'm not with the hunting party. I'm Dr. Elena Cross, and I've been hiding down here for weeks." "Nexus scientist," Marcus said wearily, raising his rifle. "Former Nexus scientist," Elena corrected. "I was part of the empath research program until I discovered what they were really doing with my work." She looked at Zara with a mixture of scientific fascination and human compassion. "You're Zara Kath, aren't you? Project file designation E47. Zara's silver patterns flared with anger. "I am not a project designation. I am a person." "You're absolutely right, and I'm sorry," Elena said quickly. "That's exactly why I couldn't continue working for them. When I realized they were turning my research into methods of control and torture." She shuddered. "I stole as much data as I could and ran." Marcus felt Zara's empathic probe reaching out to touch Elena's emotions. After a moment, Zara relaxed slightly. She's telling the truth, Zara said. Her guilt over her role in the program is genuine. So is her desire to help. Elena looked surprised. You can read emotions at this distance? The file said empathic range was limited to physical contact. The files were wrong about many things, Zara replied. Or perhaps your colleagues didn't want to report the full extent of our abilities. What did you steal? Marcus asked. Elena reached into her coat and pulled out a data pad. Location files for all known empaths in Nexus custody. Medical records showing what they've done to them. Financial records proving the whole operation is illegal under Galactic Council law. And, she hesitated, the technical specifications for the neural collars they use to control captured empaths. Zara recoiled as if struck. Neural collars? Devices that block empathic abilities while amplifying the wearer's capacity to receive emotional manipulation, Elena explained, her voice heavy with shame. They turn empaths into perfect victims and able to use their natural defenses, but hypersensitive to outside emotional control. Marcus felt Zara's horror through their bond. A cold wave of revulsion that made his stomach clench. That's monstrous. It gets worse. Elena continued. They're not just using individual empaths. They're trying to create an empathic network, dozens of collared empaths linked together to influence entire populations. Imagine being able to make a whole city feel whatever emotion serves corporate interests. We have to stop them, Marcus said immediately. How? Zara asked. I'm one empath against a corporation with unlimited resources. You're not alone, Elena said firmly. There's a resistance movement. Other escaped empaths, sympathetic humans, even some corporate whistleblowers. They're based on Sanctuary Station in the neutral zone. That's 3 systems away, Marcus pointed out. I know a way, Elena said. There's an old survey ship in a hidden hangar about 50 kilometers from here. It's not much, but it's space-worthy. The sound of voices grew closer. Thane's team had found their trail again. We need to move, Marcus said. Elena, are you coming with us? The scientist nodded. Gathering her few possessions, I've spent too many years being part of the problem. It's time I helped solve it. As they prepared to leave the Crystal Cathedral, Zara caught Marcus's hand. Through their bond, he felt her conflicted emotions, hope for the future mixed with fear of what lay ahead. Whatever happens, she said softly, I want you to know that meeting you, bonding with you, it's been the most beautiful thing in my life. For the first time, I understand what my people mean when they talk about soul bonds. Soul bonds, when two beings connect so deeply that they become part of each other. It's rare. Even among empaths, she touched the silver patterns on his skin, which now pulsed in perfect synchronization with hers. I think it's what's happening to us. Marcus leaned down and kissed her, pouring all of his feelings into the contact. Through their bond, their emotions merged completely. His protective love, her grateful joy, their shared determination to build something beautiful together. Despite the darkness surrounding them. When they broke apart, Elena was watching them with a mixture of scientific fascination and human warmth. That's what they're trying to destroy, she said quietly. The capacity for genuine connection, for love that transcends species and circumstance. They want to turn it into just another tool of control. Then we'd better make sure they fail, Marcus said, shouldering his pack. As they headed deeper into the caverns, following Elena's guidance toward the hidden ship, Marcus realized that his old life, the lonely existence of a guilt-ridden survivor, was truly over. Whatever dangers lay ahead, he would face them with Zara at his side, their hearts beating in rhythm, their souls intertwined. Behind them, Thane's voice echoed through the crystal chambers. They can't run forever. The corporation always gets what it wants. But for the first time since his family's death, Marcus felt truly alive. Love, he was learning, was the most powerful force in the universe and the most dangerous weapon against those who would seek to control it. The hidden survey ship Wanderer sat in a natural cavern like a sleeping metal bird, its hull scarred by years of use, but still proudly space-worthy. Elena led them through a concealed entrance she'd discovered during her weeks of hiding, and Marcus felt his hopes lift as he saw their ticket off Nith Prime. It's not much, Elena said apologetically. But the previous owner was a smuggler who installed some interesting modifications. Stealth plating, enhanced engines, and a medical bay that's surprisingly well-equipped. Zara ran her hands along the ship's hull, her empathic abilities reading the emotional residue left by its previous occupants. This ship has seen many desperate journeys, she said softly, but also hope. The people who flew her never gave up. As they prepped the ship for launch, Marcus found himself watching Zara work. Their bond had grown stronger over the past few days, and he could feel her emotions as clearly as his own. Right now, she was broadcasting a mixture of anticipation and deep sadness that confused him. "What's wrong?" he asked, catching her hand as she passed. "I've been thinking about what Elena said, about the resistance on Sanctuary Station." Zara's luminescent eyes were troubled. "They'll want me to help them, won't they? To use my abilities against the corporation, to free your people," Marcus corrected. "There's a difference, is there?" Zara's silver patterns dimmed with uncertainty. "Once I start using my empathic abilities as a weapon, even for a good cause, how do I avoid becoming the very thing the corporation wants me to be?" Before Marcus could answer, alarms began blaring from the ship's sensors. Elena's voice crackled over the intercom from the bridge. "We've got company. Multiple ships incoming." They rushed to the bridge viewports just in time to see Nexus assault. Ships descending into the cavern like mechanical wasps. The lead ship bore Thane's personal insignia, and Marcus could see armed figures rappelling from its cargo bay. "How did they find us so quickly?" Elena asked, her fingers flying over the ship's startup sequence. "They've been tracking me," Zara said quietly. "Not just with technology. They have other empaths with them, collared ones forced to hunt their own kind." Through the viewport, Marcus could see a figure in Nexus armor approaching the ship. But this one was different, smaller, more graceful, with the same otherworldly movement that characterized Zara's people. As the figure came closer, Zara gasped. "Kira," she whispered, her face going pale. "My sister." The empath outside the ship was indeed similar to Zara. But where Zara's silver patterns pulsed with natural light, this woman's tracery was overlaid, with harsh red lines that formed geometric patterns across her skin. Around her neck was a collar of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Kira's voice came through the ship's external speakers, but it was flat and emotionless, drained of the musical quality that made empath speech so beautiful. "Zara Keth, you will surrender yourself immediately. Resistance will result in the termination of the human subjects." Marcus felt Zara's anguish like a knife through his heart. Through their bond, he experienced her memories of Kira, a younger sister full of joy and laughter. Someone who had taught Zara how to weave flower crowns and sing the old songs of their people. Now that vibrant spirit was trapped behind a neural collar, turned into a tool of oppression. "I have to go to her," Zara said, moving toward the airlock. "No," Marcus grabbed her arm. "It's a trap. You know it's a trap. She's my sister, Marcus. I can't leave her like that." Elena's voice cut through. "Their argument, engines are online, but we need 30 seconds to clear the cavern. Those assault ships will cut us to pieces if we try to run now." Marcus looked out at the dozens of Nexus soldiers surrounding their ship, at Kira standing motionless in her neural collar, at Thane's assault ships blocking their escape route. An impossible situation with no good options. That's when he felt a presence at the edge of his consciousness. Someone else touching the empathic frequencies he was only beginning to understand. Not Zara, not Kira, but someone else entirely. "There's another empath here," he said suddenly. "Someone not collared." Zara's eyes widened as she felt it too, from the resistance. "They followed us." A new ship emerged from the cavern depths, sleek, fast, and bristling with weapons. Its hull bore no corporate insignia, just the simple geometric pattern that Marcus now recognized as the symbol of the empath resistance movement. The newcomer's pilot spoke over an open channel. "This is Jackson Reed of the Free Empaths Alliance. Nexus forces, you are in violation of Galactic Council Resolution 847 regarding the treatment of sentient beings. Withdraw immediately." Thane's voice crackled back. "This is a corporate security operation. You have no authority." "Here, we have the authority of justice," Jackson replied, "and superior firepower. The resistance ship proved its point by disabling one of Thane's assault craft with a precisely targeted energy burst, but the Nexus forces outnumbered them 3-1, and Marcus could see more ships approaching on the horizon. "They can't win this fight," Elena said. Grimly, not alone, Zara was staring at her collared sister, tears streaming down her luminescent cheeks. "I could break the collar," she said suddenly, "if I could get close enough, channel enough empathic energy. I could overload the neural feedback and free her." "The risk," Marcus began. "I know the risk." Zara turned to face him, her starlight eyes blazing with determination. "The feedback could kill me, or it could turn me into a vegetable like so many others who've tried. But Marcus, she's my sister, and she's not the only one out there suffering." Through their soul bond, Marcus felt her resolve, her willingness to sacrifice everything for the chance to free her people. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely in character for the woman he'd fallen in love with. "There has to be another way," he said desperately. "There is," Elena said quietly. "The data I stole includes the collar's technical specifications. If we could get to a proper lab, maybe we could find a way to disable them remotely." "How long would that take?" Marcus asked. "Weeks, maybe months, outside." The battle had begun in earnest. Jackson's ship danced between the assault craft like a bird among elephants. But it was taking damage. Soon, the resistance fighter would be overwhelmed. Zara made her decision. "I'm going out there. Then I'm going with you." Marcus said immediately, "Marcus, no. If something happens to me, the bond could kill you too. You need to survive." To help Elena get that data to people who can use it, Marcus cupped her face in his hands, feeling the warm pulse of her bioluminescence against his palms. "Do you remember what you told me about soul bonds? How they make two people part of each other?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Then you know I can't let you face this alone. We're stronger together. Zara, whatever happens, we face it together." Their kiss was desperate and tender, full of love and fear and unshakable determination. When they broke apart, both their bodies were glowing with synchronized silver patterns, their life forces intertwined at the deepest level. "Elena," Marcus said, "get this ship ready to run. The moment we disable those collars, we're all getting out of here." "What about Jackson?" Elena asked. "Signal him," Zara said. "Tell him what we're planning. If he can provide a distraction." "Already on it," Elena replied, her fingers flying over the communication controls. As they prepared to leave the safety of their ship, Marcus felt a strange calm settle over him. Through his bond with Zara, he could sense her absolute trust in him, her complete faith that whatever they faced, they would face it as one. It was the most precious gift anyone had ever given him. They stepped out into the chaos of the cavern battle, hand in hand, their combined empathic field beginning to pulse with a power that made the very air around them shimmer. Kira stood motionless, near Thane's command position, her collared form tragic in its artificial stillness. "Zara," Thane called out as he spotted them. "How touching. You've brought your pet human to watch you surrender." "I've brought my bonded mate to help me free my sister," Zara replied, her voice carrying new harmonics that resonated with power. Marcus felt their connection deepen even further, their two souls becoming one force focused on a single goal. Whatever the cost, whatever the risk, they would break the chains that bound Kira and all the other collared empaths. The final confrontation was about to begin. The cavern erupted in chaos as Marcus and Zara walked hand in hand toward the line of Nexus soldiers. Their combined empathic field pulsed outward like ripples in a pond, and Marcus could see the effect it was having on the unshielded humans. Some lowered their weapons, confusion replacing aggression. Others took involuntary steps backward, overwhelmed by the waves of love and determination radiating from the bonded pair. "Fascinating," Thane said, raising a device that looked like a handheld scanner. The files didn't mention that soul-bonded empaths could amplify each other's abilities to this degree. Kira stood motionless beside him, her neural collar casting red shadows across her pale features. But as Marcus and Zara approached, something flickered in her eyes, a brief moment of recognition fighting through the collars. Suppression. "Hello, sister," Zara said softly, extending her hand. "I've come to take you home." The collar round Kira's neck began to pulse rapidly, and she jerked backward as if yanked by invisible strings. "Resistance is futile," she said in that horrible, flat voice. "The corporation provides order, purpose, peace." "That's not peace," Marcus said, feeling Zara's heartbreak through their bond. "That's imprisonment." Thane smiled coldly. "Mr. Webb, you've become quite the philosopher since bonding with our asset. Unfortunately, philosophy won't save you from neural disruption." He raised a weapon Marcus had never seen before, sleek, crystalline, humming with energy that made his teeth ache. But before Thane could fire, Jackson's resistance ship screamed overhead, its weapons blazing. The Nexus commander dove for cover as energy bolts chewed up the cavern floor around him. "Now!" Zara shouted. She and Marcus lunged toward Kira, their combined empathic field focusing into a tight beam aimed at the neural collar. Marcus felt the surge of power flow through him, through their bond, channeled and amplified by their love for each other and their desperate need to save Zara's sister. The collar began to spark and smoke. Kira screamed, not the flat, emotionless sound of the controlled, but a very human cry of pain and confusion. The red geometric patterns overlaying her natural silver tracery flickered and began to fade. "System overload," Elena's voice crackled through Marcus's comm unit. "Whatever you're doing, it's working, but the feedback is enormous. I'm reading massive neural activity spikes." Marcus felt it to the backlash from the collar's destruction, flowing through their empathic connection like molten metal in his veins. Beside him, Zara was glowing so brightly she was almost impossible to look at directly. Her entire being focused on freeing her sister. The collar shattered. Kira collapsed, her body convulsing as her natural empathic abilities returned in a rush. But she was alive, and Marcus could feel her genuine emotions returning: confusion, pain, but underneath it all, a growing joy as she recognized her sister. "Zara!" Kira's voice was weak but musical again, the beautiful harmonics of her people restored. "Is it really you?" "It's me," Zara sobbed, gathering her sister into her arms. "I'm here. You're free." But their victory was short-lived. Thane had recovered from Jackson's strafing run and was advancing with his neural disruptor, flanked by soldiers whose armor protected them from empathic influence. "Touching reunion," he snarled, "but it ends now. The corporation has invested too much in this project to let it fail." That's when Marcus felt something he'd never experienced before. The touch of multiple empathic minds linking with his and Zara's throughout the cavern. He could sense other empaths awakening, their collars shorting out from the feedback of Kira's liberation. "Impossible," Thane breathed, staring at his neural scanner as its readings went wild. "The cascade effect. It's spreading to all the collared subjects in the area." Elena's voice came over the comm, tight with excitement. "The empathic resonance is creating a chain reaction. Every neural collar within a kilometer is overloading." Marcus looked around the cavern and saw them dozens of empaths in Nexus uniforms, their artificial restraints sparking and failing as their natural abilities returned. Some were confused, others angry, but all of them were free. Thane raised his disruptor, aiming it at Zara's heart. "If I can't control you, I'll destroy you." But he never got the chance to fire. Kira, still weak from her ordeal, managed to project a burst of pure emotion, not love or joy, but the crystallized memory of every moment of suffering she'd endured under corporate control. The wave of anguish hit Thane like a physical blow, dropping him to his knees. The other freed empaths joined her, their collective voice rising in a harmony that made the cavern itself ring. Like a bell, Nexus soldiers throughout the chamber began laying down their weapons, overwhelmed by the shared experience of their victims' pain. "This is what you've done to us," Kira said, her voice carrying the weight of all the liberated empaths. "Feel it, know it, remember it." Some of the soldiers began to weep, others simply walked away, their conditioning shattered by the emotional truth of what they'd been part of. Thane tried to struggle to his feet, but the concentrated empathic assault had left him barely conscious. Jackson's ship landed in the center of the cavern, its pilot emerging with weapons ready. But the battle was already over. The sight that greeted him was unprecedented: dozens of freed empaths helping their former captors understand the magnitude of their crimes through direct emotional transmission, rehabilitation, not revenge. Zara said as she and Marcus approached Jackson. "That's what separates us from them." Jackson Reed was tall and lean, with the silver hair and golden eyes that marked him as an empath, but his skin bore scars that spoke of hard-won freedom. "I've been fighting the corporation for 10 years, he said, "and I've never seen anything like this. How did you manage to break so many collars at once?" "Soul bond amplification," Elena said, joining them with her data pad full of stolen intelligence. Two empaths bonded at the deepest level can apparently create resonance effects that cascade through neural networks. It's theoretically impossible according to our research. But she gestured at the cavern full of freed empaths. Theory just met reality. Marcus felt Zara sway against him. The effort of breaking so many collars having drained her reserves. Through their bond, he poured his own strength into her, their life forces intertwining to sustain each other. "The question now," Jackson said, "is what we do with this victory. The corporation won't let this stand. They'll send fleets, armies if necessary. Then we don't give them the chance," Marcus said, an idea forming. "Elena, that data you stole, it includes locations of other facilities, right?" Elena nodded. 17 research stations, 3 detention centers, and the main processing facility on Kepler Prime. "Then we hit them all," Zara said, understanding immediately. "Use what we've learned here to free every captive empath in corporate custody." "A liberation campaign," Jackson breathed. "It's ambitious, dangerous. The casualties could be enormous." "The casualties are already enormous," Kira said, approaching on unsteady legs. Her sister helped support her, but her voice was strong. "Every day we wait, more of our people die in those facilities. At least this way. They die fighting for freedom instead of serving tyranny." Around the cavern, the other freed empaths were gathering, their faces showing a mixture of hope and determination that Marcus found deeply moving. These beings had suffered unimaginable cruelties, yet their first instinct was to help others. Still trapped in the same nightmare. "It won't be easy," Elena warned. "The corporation will adapt. They'll develop new countermeasures, stronger collars, maybe even weapons designed specifically to kill empaths. Then we'd better move fast," Marcus said. "Strike before they can react." Over the next several hours, they planned their campaign with military precision. Jackson's resistance network provided intelligence and resources, while Elena's stolen data gave them detailed schematics of corporate facilities. The freed empaths would form the core of their strike teams, their abilities allowing them to disable security systems and liberate their imprisoned kin. But it was Zara and Marcus who would spearhead the most dangerous mission, an assault on the main processing facility where the corporation's most valuable empath prisoners were held. "The facility is heavily defended," Jackson warned as they studied the tactical displays. "Automated defenses, a full regiment of corporate security, and rumor has it they're experimenting with some kind of psychic dampening field. Then we'll need every advantage we can get," Zara said. She looked at Marcus, her starlight eyes reflecting the weight of what they were planning. "Are you ready for this? Once we commit to this path, there's no going back." Marcus thought of his wife and daughter, of the life he'd lost and the new one he'd found with Zara. He thought of Kira and all the other empaths who had suffered under corporate control. Most of all, he thought of the future they were fighting for, a galaxy where love and empathy were gifts to be celebrated, not tools to be exploited. "I'm ready," he said simply. The assault on Kepler Prime began at dawn 3 days later. Marcus and Zara's strike team approached the processing facility in a captured corporate transport, their empathic signatures masked by technology Elena had reverse-engineered from the collar specifications. The facility was a nightmare of sterile corridors and holding cells, each one containing an empath in various stages of the conditioning process. Marcus felt sick as they passed viewing windows showing beings reduced to catatonic states by neural manipulation. "How many?" he asked Elena, who was monitoring the facility's internal systems. 347 active subjects, she replied grimly, most of them in the final stages of processing. They reached the central control room without incident. The facility's security focused on keeping prisoners in rather than intruders out. But as Zara began working to disable the mass collar control system, Alarms began blaring throughout the complex. "They know we're here," Marcus said, raising his weapon as the sound of running feet echoed through the corridors. "Almost got it," Zara replied, her hands dancing over the control interface. "Just need a few more seconds." The door exploded inward, revealing a squad of corporate soldiers in heavy armor. But these weren't ordinary troops. Marcus could see neural interfaces grafted to their skulls, their eyes glowing with artificial light. "Cybernetic enhancement," Elena gasped. "They've turned themselves into living weapons." The enhanced soldiers moved with inhuman speed and coordination, their weapons tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Marcus dove for cover, pulling Elena with him as energy bolts chewed up the control console behind them. But Zara stood her ground, her empathic field blazing outward like a star. The cybernetic soldiers staggered, their artificial enhancements struggling to process the flood of pure emotion she was projecting. "I can't hold them long," she gasped, blood trickling from her nose as the effort strained her abilities to the breaking point. Marcus felt their bonds stretching like a cable under tension. Through their connection, he poured every ounce of his strength into her, feeling his own life force diminishing as hers blazed brighter. With a sound like breaking crystal, every collar in the facility went dead simultaneously. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. 347 empaths suddenly found their abilities restored, their suppressed emotions returning in a tsunami of rage, joy, and desperate hope. The psychic shockwave rippled through the facility like an earthquake, shorting out electronics and sending the cybernetic soldiers into convulsions as their artificial neural networks overloaded. But the effort had cost them. Marcus felt Zara collapse beside him, her bioluminescence flickering like a dying candle. Through their bond, he could sense her life signs fading. "No," he whispered, gathering her into his arms. "Don't you dare leave me now, Marcus," she breathed, her voice barely audible. "The bond, it's killing you too. You need to let go." "Never," he said fiercely. "We're stronger together, remember?" He felt Elena's hands on his shoulders, heard her voice as if from a great distance. "The other empaths are free. They're overwhelming the facility's defenses. We won." But victory felt hollow as Marcus watched the woman he loved slipping away. He pressed his forehead against hers, their silver patterns pulsing in perfect synchronization even as they grew dimmer. That's when he felt them, the other empaths throughout the facility, their newly freed abilities reaching out to touch his and Zara's bond. One by one, they began to share their strength, their life force flowing into the fading connection. Between the two lovers, a soul bond doesn't just connect to people, Kira's voice said softly as she entered the control room. "It connects them to all of us. You saved us, sister. Now let us save you." The combined empathic field of hundreds of freed empaths flowed through Marcus and Zara like warm sunlight, healing their strained connection and restoring their depleted life forces. Marcus felt Zara's consciousness return, her bioluminescence brightening as their bonds stabilized. They had won, not just this battle, but the war itself. Word of the liberation spread throughout the galaxy within hours, inspiring uprisings on corporate worlds and investigations by the Galactic Council. The Nexus Corporation's stock collapsed, its executives fled to neutral space, and its victims finally found justice. But for Marcus and Zara, the victory was personal and intimate. They had found each other in the frozen wastes of a dying world, forged a love that transcended species and circumstance, and used that love to free hundreds of innocent beings from corporate tyranny. 6 months later, they stood on the observation deck of Sanctuary Station, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Empaths who had lived in hiding for decades were emerging, ready to reclaim their place in galactic society. Human allies brought resources and support. Even former corporate employees, inspired by the liberation, had joined the cause of rehabilitation and healing. "What are you thinking about?" Zara asked, her arm wrapped around Marcus's waist as they watched the traffic. "The future," Marcus replied. "A galaxy where empathy is valued instead of feared, where love is seen as strength, not weakness." "It won't be easy," Zara warned. "There will always be those who want to exploit others, who see compassion as something to be used. Then we'll be there to stop them," Marcus said, turning to face the woman who had become his heart his soul, his partner in all things. Together, their kiss was witnessed by the stars themselves. Two souls joined across the vast darkness of space by bonds stronger than gravity, more enduring than time. Behind them, Sanctuary Station hummed with activity as freed empaths worked alongside their human allies to build a better future. In the medical bay, Elena worked with former corporate scientists to develop new treatments for trauma victims. In the command center, Jackson coordinated relief efforts for newly liberated colonies. And in quarters throughout the station, families torn apart by corporate greed were finally reunited. But it all began with one man who chose compassion over survival, one woman who chose trust over fear, and a love that proved stronger than the forces that sought to destroy it. Marcus Webb had come to Nith Prime as a broken survivor, carrying the weight of old grief. He left as half of something greater, a soul bond that would echo through the ages. A love story written in starlight and silver patterns that pulsed with the rhythm of two hearts beating as one. The frozen ground of that distant world had hidden many secrets, but the greatest of all was the simple truth that love, when freely given and fearlessly shared, could indeed change the galaxy. In the years that followed, Marcus and Zara became symbols of the new era, proof that different species could find common ground in the depths of genuine emotion. That empathy was not weakness, but the foundation of all true strength. Their children would inherit both human determination and empath sensitivity, growing up in a galaxy where such unions were celebrated rather than feared. And sometimes, late at night aboard their ship as they traveled between worlds on missions of healing and hope, Marcus would remember that first moment when he pulled her frozen form from the ice. He had thought he was saving her life, but she had saved his soul. The inscription on their ship's hull, written in both human script and the flowing symbols of the empath language, told their story in just 6 words. From frozen hearts, the stars were warmed,